Two of the great artists of our time representing the groundbreaking legacy of hip-hop in America, LL Cool J. By the way, that man's got biceps bigger than my thighs. I think he's...
Yes, Joe Biden, who didn't want his sons going to school in a racial jungle in Delaware when they began way back when racially integrating schools in Delaware. It all washes off when you're a Democrat, though. We were just having a conversation about our support for Ukraine and the ongoing war in Ukraine and the no end in sight, the forever war, the new forever war. Great news for the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex loves Joe Biden and the Democrats. Nobody's even watching where the more than 100 billion American taxpayer dollars are going. I promise you a great many of those dollars are being siphoned off and homes are being purchased in Switzerland and France, and large boats and airplanes are being purchased by people skimming. You know, how many, like hundreds of billions stolen from the COVID relief funds just here in the United States? How many billions do you think are being siphoned off there for the forever war? Great news for the military-industrial complex. And Joe Biden, one of the great sock puppets of all time, he is just funneling our money that way. Where are the peace talks going on? Where's our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken? Why isn't he in Geneva or somewhere holding peace talks and arguing over the shape of the table to try to get something done? Well, nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's watching the money. We're sending him Joe Biden as Cluster Bomb Joe, right? He's sending him cluster munitions, which are banned by most Western countries, but Joe Biden's sending him cluster munitions. Those are anti-personnel weapons, and of course depleted uranium munitions too, along with our M1 tanks, our top-of-the-line battle tanks, and the depleted uranium munitions for that. And then, decades from now, they'll say, oh, look what the cluster bombs did. Look what the depleted uranium munitions did. And that's okay. Joe Biden will probably get the Nobel Peace Prize before it's over because, like Barack Obama get the Nobel Peace Prize. Then he bombed 8 countries. A number of countries greater than any president has dropped bombs on since World War II. And he got the Nobel Peace Prize. He's got it at home. It's probably on a wall. Very proud of it. Oh, I got the Nobel Peace Prize. And then I bombed more countries than any president since World War II. You're welcome. It's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? But that was Joe Biden with his LLJ Cool J. That boy has bigger biceps than I have thighs or something like that. Interestingly, they're not larger than Michelle Obama's, though. In fact, Senator Ted Cruz last night, and I've been talking about this for maybe not longer than anybody, but longer than almost anybody, about Michelle Obama parachuting in to save the Democrat Party at the convention in Chicago next year, coincidentally. She's waiting in the wings, and make no mistake, Hillary Clinton is waiting in the wings, too. And she has a blow dart gun with poison darts. Poison darts. I have multiple blow dart guns myself. A couple of them I got in Indonesia. Blow dart guns. They're made of bone. We don't think they're human bone. And they're blow darts, and they're shaped like dragons, the blow dart guns. And the darts, they're quite effective, actually. And who was it? We were coming home from Indonesia aboard a very large Air Force plane, and the then Secretary of Defense, William Sebastian Cohen, wanted to play with my blow dart gun, and he was playing with my blow dart gun, and he poked himself with one of the darts, and he completely freaked out for days. He was terrified that the dart was going to cause him forever pain. It was like the vaccine. He thought it was like the vaccine. That was kind of funny. But I have 2 of those blow dart guns made of bone, mounted in a frame at home, just in case. Back up to the backup, for that matter. But in any case, back to Joe Biden calling LL Cool J boy, and talking about the boy because Joe Biden didn't want his sons going to school in a racial jungle That means with black people. And he is, he was channeling, I think it was Larry O'Connor this morning say he was channeling his inner Senator Robert Byrd. He was channeling his inner Robert Byrd, old colleague of Joe Biden's, and the exalted Cyclops of the Democratic Party. Kind of a funny title. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's the exalted Cyclops of the KKK. That's right. Senator Robert Byrd, who I interviewed more than once in the old days. And in fact, I interviewed him in the old Senate chamber, inside the Capitol on the anniversary of the Capitol being built or something. And he wouldn't stop talking. That thing went on for like 3 videotapes. His press guy was furious. And I was shrugging and like, yeah, it's not me, it's him. I only asked like 2 questions. He's going on and on. Senator Robert Byrd, old colleague of Joe Biden's. And LL Cool J, he couldn't quite come, even though it's in the teleprompter. He screwed up LL Cool J like he had never heard his name before. Like nobody's ever heard LL Cool J in movies and music. He's only been famous household name for about 30 years now, I'm thinking, LL Cool J. So he calls him LLJ Cool J and then calls him boy. And then he did notice that he said that. And then he said, well, the man, and he's got biceps bigger than my thighs, which is why he falls over on the bicycle and things like that. But there was a moment, there is a left-wing, what is he, a podcast host, Charlemagne the Misspelled God, right? Charlemagne the Misspelled God. And Charlemagne the Misspelled God, why do you call him Charlemagne the Misspelled God? Because he misspells the. He spells it T-H-A, because the left loves to spread illiteracy. And it's part of their illiteracy campaign, which is a sustained illiteracy campaign. And it annoys me that so many people on the left, and honestly, a lot of it is an African-American thing, to deliberately and knowingly misspell names and words, which I don't think is helpful for the next generation growing up in a deliberately illiterate world. I think it's better if people can speak the King's English now that the Queen is gone, and long live the King Chuck over there, who I met and talked to and explained a few things to a number of years ago. But misspelling things annoys me. I don't think that's helpful. Also, it kind of goes with what the Democrats are doing everywhere. And in Baltimore, for example, where the Democrats run the city into the ground. And we learned just the other day that in Baltimore, in high schools there, 40% of the high schools did not produce a single student, not one, that was proficient in math. And, that should matter if you cared about the future and about children. But it's a pretty amazing story. National Review did the story, and I don't think the Washington Post did. 40%, because they like illiteracy. Kind of funny for an alleged newspaper. 40% of Baltimore high schools don't have a single math proficient student, right? Because the Democrats, see this, just Charlemagne the Misspelled God reminded me of this, because the left spreads dysfunction. Educationally, they love illiteracy. They love math illiteracy. 13 Baltimore City high schools don't have a single student who has achieved grade level proficiency in math. High school students took the Maryland State math exam in the spring of 2023. Took a long time for them to tally it up, Of the 32 high schools that issued the exam, 13 of them produced no students who proved proficient in math. Fox 45 News, but not CNN. Project Baltimore reported this week, and the fact that 74.5% of those students who were tested scored a 1 out of 4 on the test, the lowest possible score. Haley Strack wrote the story for the National Review online. And this is something that the Democrats shrug and then get back to smoking crack and writing hookers off on their taxes, like Hunter Biden. I just threw a little Hunter Biden in there. because I think it belongs in there. But Charlemagne the God, let's get back to Charlemagne the God as I digress from my digression. But Charlemagne the misspelled God, who actually seems like a perfectly nice guy. He really does seem like a perfectly nice guy. And he seems like a fairly intelligent guy. But he does the work of the left. And that's detrimental to everyone that he and his product touch. So let's go to Charlemagne the God, because he listened to Joe Biden calling LL Cool J, LLJ Cool J, and then calling him boy. And Charlemagne the misspelled God said this.
A lot of people are upset that Joe Biden referred to LL Cool J as a boy. As you can hear, he corrected himself on the spot. You know why Joe Biden corrected himself? Because he's 137 years old. He fully understands the word boy in the racial context around a white man referring to a black man as boy. See, boy is absolutely a white racist word when used in a certain context.
When used in a certain context. And with Joe Biden, with the Joe Biden criminal reform law that put black people in prison for crack cocaine, but not his son for powdered cocaine, and longer prison sentences, and his pal, the exalted Cyclops, Robert Byrd, and so many of the other segregationist Democrat members of the Senate and the House. That's how old Joe Biden is. He was working with the segregationists in the old days, and Charlemagne the misspelled God wasn't done.
Doesn't matter how many black people you have in your administration. Doesn't matter how many black people you have right for you. If it's not authentic to him, then it won't come off as authentic to anyone. Okay, y'all keep trying to make this 197-year-old man sound cool simply because he's talking to black people, and there's nothing more uncool than someone trying too hard to be cool. What's that quote? Don't try too hard to be cool. It always shows, and that's uncool. Yes, that is President Joe Biden.
That's not an old quote. Nobody's ever heard that old quote. That's not actually an old quote, but okay. And is he 137 years old or 197 years old? He got 60 years older there from the first part to the second part. I do kind of like the music playing in the background, though. I talked about doing that for my show, and I got a lot of pushback. On that. No, you can't play music during your show while you're talking. I mean, well, people are sitting in restaurants and talking, and there's music playing in the background. People are in their cars talking, and there's music playing, I said. And no, I was told. You will not play music. You may recall also that it was Charlemagne the misspelled God that had Joe Biden on when he was running for president, trying to get him the black vote because, Democrats like to drum up support for the party of the KKK and Robert Byrd and Jefferson Davis and the Confederate States of America and the party of Jim Crow and the party of standing in schoolhouse doors, because that's what information dominance can do for you. Can convince you that the party that gave us the man that shot and killed Abraham Lincoln is the party that you want to vote for if you're black. See, because that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Sure, the party of the Great Society that broke up the nuclear family in black neighborhoods with a pay schedule that rewarded you for living in a single-parent household and punished you for having a man in the house, playing the role of father. That's the Democrat Party. That's had quite an effect. Now, Charlemagne the God had Joe Biden on when he was campaigning for president, right? And Charlemagne the misspelled God was trying to help out Joe Biden and the party of Jim Crow because I can't really explain all of it. I can only observe it and say it out loud, but it sounded like this.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
That's right. Then you ain't black because, that Trump, he's the bad guy and not me with the crime bill and the racial jungle and school and all that stuff. And, of course, you may remember Joe Biden just the other day when he was addressing the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and he naturally thanked the Congressional Black Caucus.
They echo what my dad taught me.
No, he
and
didn't.
I mean this sincerely. My dad used to say, everyone.
No, he didn't.
Everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity and respect. The Congressional Black Caucus embodies all those values.
That's right. And if only they were here today, I would thank them. Unfortunately, they're not. So I'll just thank them, even though I'm talking to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The Congressional White Caucus will meet never, because that would be racist, because Democrats. Hey, President Joe Biden's big plan to introduce the digital dollar is already underway. And it's very important to understand the potential consequences here, because what they're telling us about the digital dollar is not so true, and it's not in your best interest or mine. The clock is ticking, so the time to get smart is now. You can help protect your savings and your retirement from the calamity that is the digital dollar by diversifying your money and your retirement into IRAs with gold and silver. Precious metals, my friends. You get started by calling the experts at American Alternative Assets. Call them today at 888-4GOLD20. 4GOLD20. That's 888-446-5320 for guidance on safeguarding your retirement savings. Say no to Joe Biden's crazy digital dollar. Call 888-4GOLD20. Individual results may vary. There is no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah, Joe Biden, it's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? This is what information dominates. Propaganda. The propaganda apparatus of the Democrat Party can clean up any stain for Joe Biden, even if Joe Biden is the stain. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Now, the Telegraph is a newspaper of sorts, and the Telegraph is reporting a story that Wikipedia, the online encyclopedia, may delete the entry on mass killings under communism, because there are leftists who are claiming that the entry on Wikipedia about the communists murdering people by the millions is biased. I think it probably should be biased, don't you think? But they've got there's a big debate going on, and the Telegraph they've had this debate before, talking about the mass killings. And I say to the debate over the ideology of communism is described by one historian as appalling, paving the way for more tyranny in the future. Because Wikipedia, and they've been babbling about this for a couple of years now, they're looking at deleting the horrors of communism because leftists want to cleanse their record, which is what they do. They erase. It's like tearing down statues here in the United States. The mass killings under communist regimes being purged from the platform over fears of bias. The page outlining the deaths of millions in one-party states, including the Soviet Union, Communist China, been flagged for deletion, with some users responsible for maintaining the site taking issue with blaming mass murder on communist ideology. Sure. Dedicated entry listing the actions of figures like Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot and Kim Jong-il, accused of putting forward a biased and anti-communist point of view. Isn't that funny? These people call themselves liberals, so they ride to the defense of history's most prolific mass murderers. All right. Crazy Democrat news. Maybe we should call the show Crazy Democrat News. Because I was in Chicago a while back having an event with listeners from the great and wonderful WLS in Chicago. And a listener there, a great American, said, "Who writes your jokes for you?" I think I've told this story here. "Who writes your joke for you?" And I said, "Well, nobody writes my jokes for me." And he said, "No, the Democrats write your jokes for you." I said, "Well, that's true enough. Can't argue with that. That's true. I don't have to do any of the heavy lifting. They do it all for me because they're out of their minds. I don't know what happened to them. They used to be much more normal than this, but something terrible happened. And that's why we sell T-shirts and coffee mugs that say, 'Remember Normal.' Remember Normal is the key. We also have our Donald Trump mugshot coffee mugs with 'The left is coming for your rights.' Got the President Trump coffee mug, the mugshot, and the Chris Plant Show logo on the other side. Something else occurred to me yesterday. Hunter Biden was charged. When was he charged? He was brought in, right? And was he mugshotted? Because President Trump was mugshotted, and those mugshots were made public immediately. But what happened to, for example, Senator Menendez was charged last week, bribery and all kinds of charges. Where are his mugshots? Why have his mugshots not been released? Wasn't Hunter Biden charged with gun crimes recently again? Where are his mugshots? Isn't it interesting that some mugshots are made public and made public lickety-split, as Chaz Bono would say, and other mugshots never see the light of day? What is up with that? That's what I want to know. And if we had a news media, what would they be doing about it? But we don't. We have a gang of fluffers that pretend to be journalists, and they're paid by billionaire information oligarchs who serve the Democrat Party as part of the merger between state and corporate power that is the Democrat Party in the United States of America. The merger of state and corporate power. Why does that ring a bell? Fascinating. I'm telling you. You know, speaking of Menendez, we can go to Senator Robert, they call him Bob Menendez, and there are a couple of funny things that he said because he's been charged with a bunch of crimes, including bribery and accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, and they've got the envelopes with the DNA of the other people charged, the businessmen charged with bribing him. And it's like, oh, no, they didn't give me no money. I just been collecting it from my ATM, you know, and over the years, 30 years, I've been piling up cash at home. Now I have more than $480,000 cash at home. Oh, sure, I have these gold bricks over here, the gold bars. I got a bunch of those, too. But pay no attention to that. That's just because I like money and stuff. Pretty amazing stuff. But before we get to Menendez, let's go back to the phones. We are, of course, at 888-630-9625. Let's go to John calling from Wayne, New Jersey, which doesn't mean you're John Wayne, but you are John from Wayne, which is kind of fun. John, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yes, I am. Thank you for taking the call, Chris.
You bet. That's why we're here.
It's good you mentioned New Jersey because we in New Jersey have special insight into the Menendez prosecution. You know, you and everyone else may be wondering, why did the Democrats decide, why did the Biden administration decide to sic their Justice Department on a fellow Democrat? And it's because it's not really the Biden administration, it's the Obama zombie administration. And we all recall that when Barack Obama attempted to restore normal diplomatic relations with Cuba so that Cuba could, and then send them aid and arm them so that they could spread their communism around the Western Hemisphere, which was Obama's plan, Menendez, who is Cuban and has a large Cuban voting constituency, found it inconvenient to support Obama's demonic plan. Now, that's not to excuse Menendez for being a crooked politician that he is, a piker compared to Biden in terms of graft and corruption. However, he did stand up against Obama's plan to normalize relationships with, and he was in a position, from his position in the Senate, he was placed sufficiently high to prevent Obama's plan from coming to fruition. This prosecution now is Obama's revenge. He's got a long memory, and he sticks to it. And this is retribution for standing against the Castro, Che Guevara, admiration that motivated Obama when he tried to normalize relations with Cuba.
A very interesting take, John.
A lot of people.
Go ahead.
A lot of people in New Jersey remember that it's not. It was nationwide information, but not that prominent. That this guy Menendez, senator from New Jersey, was standing in the way of Obama's plan. But we knew it because he's our senator. Not that I voted for him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't vote for him. But
Yeah.
anyhow, but the news in New Jersey carried that information. Oh, Menendez stands up. Oh, that's a nice thing. Oh, he's standing up against Obama. Geez, I didn't vote for him, but I would have if I knew. But anyhow, that's what singled him out for being the sole Democrat of any publicity, of any national recognition, to be prosecuted for the kind of corruption that is endemic to that party.
That is a great take on it. Now, are you Cuban American yourself or no?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I'm American and a half. But, we live near. I certainly have Cuban friends, both those born and naturalized citizens and those who are of Cuban descent. And yes, I do have them. So it's, it's not a strange or foreign issue to me.
Well, it is.
And of course, it's my senator.
Yeah, and he's yours. Congratulations. It's not easy living in Democrat states. It's a terrible thing.
My God.
And you got your Democrat governor there, Murphy, saying to Menendez that he should step down.
But,
He's not innocent until proven guilty. He should step down and be punished now that he's been accused.
But Murphy knows. Yeah, Murphy is connected with the larger Democrat, agenda, which includes everything that Obama stands for, including his control of the White House.
Yeah, I think you're on to him, John. Thank you. Listen, thank you for the call, and thank you for hanging in there, too. I appreciate it. It is an interesting circumstance because it's true, the Biden Department of Justice. Now, a couple of things about this, John, and everyone else. The raid on Menendez's house was more than 13 months ago, well over a year ago. And we didn't hear a thing about it. We didn't hear word one, not a peep. There wasn't a leak out of the Justice Department. The photos of the cash and the jacket with his, senator thing embroidered in the jacket where they found piles of cash, stacks and stacks of folded cash stuffed into the pockets of jackets hanging in the closet. You might put him in a bank or something. No, he says he took the money out of a bank, brought it home in cash over the course of years because he wanted to explain more than $480,000 in folding cash in his house, plus gold bricks that were 1 kilo each, 1 kilo, about 2.2 pounds. That's 1,000 grams. See, Hunter Biden knows what I'm talking about there. 1,000 grams, a kilogram. And what are they worth? Like $64,000 each, the gold bricks that he's got, the gold bars that he's got. And, old gold brick Menendez. And it's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? But they raided the house and not a leak out of anybody, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because when they raided Mar-a-Lago, the FBI immediately leaked the photos and the details, and they set up and staged the photos, and they used the magazine rack to frame the photo with pictures of President Trump on the front page of magazines to make him look vain or something like that. And just amazing that nothing leaked in the Menendez case for 13 months after the raid, because the Department of Justice and the FBI are fantastically corrupt. They are just corrupt as hell, and they need to be essentially dismantled and reassembled in their, in the image of what we had originally at least thought we had at the FBI and the Department of So-Called Justice. We should call it the DOSCJ, the Department of So-Called Justice. I guess so-called could be hyphenated. We could just stay with an S. DOSJ, the Department of So-Called Justice. But pretty amazing. Now, all kinds of things have happened. But I got to tell you, the 13 months, the 15 months, it's 1 year plus 3 months. Doing a little dyslexia on myself there. The 15 months since the raid on his home, and not a single newspaper story, not a photo leaked, nothing. But Mar-a-Lago rated, here are the photos, CNN, here are the photos, New York Times. Here are all the details. We staged the photos for you. We brought in Annie Leibovitz to, put the magazine rack in there and stage the whole thing. They didn't really bring in Annie Leibovitz. But the 15 months after the raid or the search warrant served on his home, which doubtless was not a raid, and CNN was not invited, like the Roger Stone pre-dawn raid by the FBI, where they invited CNN to put a camera crew outside so the whole world would have videotape of their big, brave raid with rifles and body armor and helmets. And did they shoot his dog? No, they didn't really shoot his dog, but they might as well have. So here's Senator Menendez yesterday. He's a Democrat. He had more than $480,000 in cash in his home. He had gold bricks all over the place. And he came out yesterday to make up a victim story that he said that he's only being targeted because he's Latino. And I shared this with you yesterday. And the powers that be, that always sounds funny, doesn't it? They couldn't stand a self-made Latino man rising to such heights, and he had to be taken down because they're all racists, like Cuban is another race or something, It's not. But okay, here's Menendez yesterday making up a fantastical story.
For 30 years, I have withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account.
Naturally.
Which I have kept for emergencies and because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba.
That's right.
Now, this may seem old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned.
But these were monies drawn from my personal savings account based on the income that I have lawfully derived over those 30 years. I look forward to addressing other issues at trial.
And then he didn't answer any questions, and he was walking out without answering any questions because that's what effete, elite, radical, totalitarian leftists do. And he's walking away. One reporter had the good judgment to shout, "What about the gold bars?" Where did the gold bars come from? That was his explanation for the cash. Over the course of 30 years, he's been taking money out of his savings account, not putting it in, and bringing it home to his home, where he wrapped it up in stacks of, folding cash, and wrapped them and put them in envelopes and put them in the pockets of jackets in his closets at home. And it totaled more than $480,000 in cash. But you see, all this money came from his savings account. He brought the money home. And the reason, you see, is that he was, because his family came from Cuba, that he was concerned about confiscation of his cash from his savings account because communism, right? And then, this is pretty amazing stuff. And then he got some gold bars just in case, and one question about that from one reporter, and he walked away and didn't answer any questions because why would he? Don't you know? Pretty amazing. The headline in the USA Today: bulletproof vests and charges of corruption, the life and career of Senator Bob Menendez. But I want to share with you a little details because he said his family is all concerned about confiscating his money from his savings account because his family fled Cuba. Menendez was born in New York. He wasn't born in Cuba. His parents left Cuba years before Fidel Castro and the communists took over. So they fled a non-communist Cuba, came to the United States. Mom gave birth to young Robert, a.k.a. Bob Menendez, in New York City. And that's why he fears, not just that's why he fears confiscation by a Castro's Cuba, because that makes no sense at all. That is the biggest crock of hooey that he's fearing. I was born here. I wasn't born in Cuba, and neither was he. And I'm not worried about my money being taken by the Cubans, and neither is he. And his parents left Cuba before it was communist. They didn't flee the communists. They came to New Jersey. Then Bob was born in New York. And all of this is demonstrably untrue. Either that or you're mentally unstable in some way. My parents, it's like, your parents fled the Soviet Union and moved to the United States. Woo, thank God we got out of the Soviet Union. But you think you have to still go by Soviet rules because the Democrat Party is here. Fall is in the air, and that means we're looking forward to crisp mornings, already getting them falling leaves and sweater weather. More importantly, it's the perfect time for fall grilling. Barbecues, tailgating, great comfort food. Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks has all your fall cravings covered with 50% off across the entire Omaha Steaks site right now. That's on Al Gore's Amazing Internet during their semi-annual sale. That's 50% off all your favorite tender, juicy, extra-aged steaks like their butcher's cut filet mignons. So go to omahasteaks.com and use the promo code PLANT. That's me, Plante. I have an extra E on the end. I don't know why. Use it at checkout. You're going to get an additional $30 off after getting half off plus $30 off. Come on. Thank me later. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. Endless flavor, endless value, endless incredible entrees, great sides, delicious desserts, and a whole lot more. All of them for 50% off during their semi-annual sale, plus $30 off because you hang with me. Every delicious bite backed by their 100% unconditional guarantee. Go to omahasteaks.com, shop for all your delicious favorites for half the price plus $30 off when you enter the promo code PLANT at checkout. Come on. Hurry, this sale is only for a limited time. Minimum purchase may apply. Visit omahasteaks.com for details. Yeah. When you're a Democrat, you just come out, you hold a press conference, you tell a lie, you don't answer any questions, you walk away, and then the news media does positive stories about you. It's good to be a Democrat. A couple more inconvenient details about Bob Menendez's claim that he's been accumulating cash for 30 years from his savings account and accumulated more than $480,000 in cash in his home. And naturally, because it reminded me of Sammy Davis Jr. in Ocean's 11, because it's where my mind often goes, the old movies. And, that is going to have him a penthouse, too, stacks and stacks of Folden Green. But I ran out the clock again. Stacks and stacks of Folden Green. EO11. Well, he's got the stacks and stacks of Folden Green. Those dollar bills have dates on them. He says he's been doing it for 30 years. Let's check the dates. Also, the envelope, at least one of them, has the DNA and the fingerprints of one of the other crooks.